It is early in the morning, and I should be asleep. The shave we have for you today will feature a new sample, SoapMakers of Awesometown. I believe that is a soap made by the makers, made by the Barrister and Mann. And that was one of the names that they jokingly thought that they would call their company. And I'm pressing that soap a little bit here, it should be enough. Pressing that soap into the bottom of my bowl so that it will hopefully be integrated more quickly into the lather. Now, it was kind of hard when I first got it, so I haven't really gotten a good smell, but now that I'm pressing it, the smell is starting to get released. We'll take a smell of that in a minute. Let's go through the rest of the hardware. I have an Aristocrat US model. I can't remember, I think, the late 1940s, something like that. Does it have a date code on it? I don't see one anywhere. I'll have to find that out. But haven't shaved with this one yet. Looking forward to it. And inside, I have a few razors that I'm going to be testing out that are kind of similar to this one, and so inside each one I'm going to put a Wilkinson sword blade, which is a pretty good little inexpensively priced blade that performs reasonably well. So I'll tighten that guy down. Great weight to it. We'll talk more later. Other items include Whipped Dog 24mm Badger Silvertip. Has been pre-soaking. I don't think I let my brush soak long enough last time, and the inside just seemed to, when I was mixing the lather, I had to kind of turn the brush upside down and look down into the fibers, and it seemed to be dry kind of in the middle with so many hairs. Maybe I just didn't let it set for long enough, let it soak. I was doing it I would let it soak while I was putting my shaving area together with things like Thayer's alcohol-free witch hazel, unscented, with aloe in it. Let's see, here's the little paper for the Wilkinson swords. I can't remember if this is the India version or the German version. There's two versions. I can't remember which one. Okay, I think I remember saying this is not the classic. I think I remember making a note of that, so we'll see how true that is. I'll post it in the comments which one. And I believe I'm ready to go. So, let's just take a smell. Floral, something that jumps out right away. But there are some other things in there, like maybe some kind of grassy lemongrass, maybe. Is there some citrus? Maybe. Now, I would guess so. Florals, citrus. Or is it all citrus and not too many florals? That might be right. Anyway, so seems to be very pleasant. Probably not my style. I kind of like the darker stuff, more chainsaws and leather and things like that. But a very clean, not too much ivory soap type soapy smell. Not very much of that. Green, kind of a green smell. Okay, I've been wanting to try this one. Read about it, thought it was intriguing. So let us The brush has been soaking in distilled water, so I wanted to give the lather the best chance possible with my hard water that I have. I'm a cold shaver as well, and so this is cold or lukewarm water. I did dribble most of the lather out of the brush. Still a reasonable amount in there. Hopefully it soaked for long enough. We got into those bristles, the water. Okay, so as I've started, we've got a very bubbly, and that's typical because the water in the brush and the soap just have not integrated yet. Gradually the soap will turn a more opaque white. As it already kind of has. The bubbles are still there, but they're starting to change. Oh yeah, there's an additional note that came out right there that wasn't there before. Man, this thing is really, I can't remember the last time a soap just kind of started rolling off the sides like that. So obviously, as you can see, that super bubbly stuff has given way, and we're really starting to integrate the soap more. You know, there's something called a Marco method, and it involves using lots of water, lots of soap. And there's one guy who did it online, and he did end up using lots of soap, maybe twice as much as one might normally use. But then I ran across a commenter online who said that, well, you don't have to do it that way. There's a way to do it where you don't use up extra soap and waste it. That's where you start out with a lot of water. And the other method, one other method, and this is one I'm kind of preferring while I learn, is to maybe add a little bit of water in the beginning, much less than you think you'll need eventually. It's got a decent sheen to it. And then start kind of on the low water side so that you can slowly build it up to where you need it to be. And I think that's a good way to go when you are maybe trying out a bunch of different soaps, because if there are some soaps that just take a lot of water and some that don't, and so if you mistakenly put a lot of water into one that doesn't need it, then you've kind of wasted your soap there, and you have to go back in and maybe get more soap from the puck or try to integrate it or something like that. Now, this stuff is still very light. We've got a peak there that's pretty neat looking. As you can see, we have plenty of it. It's got a sheen, so maybe it's well hydrated. The brush. Let's take a look inside the brush. Yeah. Looks nice and moist in there. Previously I saw something that resembled more of droplets of powder or something like that. And so that instance must have been a case where I had not let my brush soak as long as it needed to. That's a beautiful lather. It's not super custardy by any means. It's not super thick, but it is plentiful, and I believe it's well hydrated, and I believe that's more important than super thick. So I believe this guy might be ready to go. Another smell test here. Yeah, there's something else that's coming out right there, but I can't identify it. It's a decent little fragrance if you like citrus, with maybe grassy hints or something. Okay, is the grassy there anymore? Maybe. I'm not good enough to tell. Okay, so I am going to splash myself with a little bit of water, and then let's get her going. I've got Astra blades, and got some personas that are super sharp. Got a couple of feathers. And so as I'm trying out my Aristocrats, I was thinking I could use those. And they would probably give me a good shave, but I believe that the Wilkinson sword blade will tell me more about the razor. For instance, if I put a blade on there that always cuts super well, then I may not be able to tell which Aristocrat I like better. But if I have a blade that cuts pretty well, then it's easier to see variation. If one razor causes it to cut extra more so than it originally would, then I know something more about that razor. If there can be a range that's detectable, where if you put a super sharp blade in there, you kind of lose your range. You would only know if it was bad, if you can put it that way. So by putting the Wilkinson sword in, if I get amazing results, then I know that, hey, this razor and the Wilkinson sword are just a really good match. Now I wonder if this brush is hogging this lather, because when I was scrubbing, it was not really laying down too well on my face. It was still very kind of like that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you could see plenty of pink through the white. I don't think I put too much water in it, but I may have. It definitely starts to look better when I paint like this. I'm definitely getting the citrus fragrance. While I'm lathering up here, so that's cool. Oh, mossy, a little bit of mossy in there, like peat or maybe oak moss or something. There could be a little bit of that in there, maybe. Kind of adding a little base to it. Just speculating. All right. Nice razor. Hailed by many. It's the American version. Later on I'm going to try the British version. And we'll see. It's not too noisy in terms of chatter. That seems to mean that the blade is being held securely and kind of up a little closer to the edge so that we don't get a lot of chatter. It does not feel like a mild razor. That kind of makes sense because the mild razors usually don't become legendary. That's my guess. So it needs to be a little bit more than mild so that people can really feel like they're getting good shaves. I'm generally going with the grain on this pass. My cheeks can handle more aggressive settings, more aggressive razors and blades. My neck, however, will act as a little bit of a litmus test for the aggression level. To some degree. I'm going to do a rinse. So, very happy with that first pass. Kind of like a fat boy. Another vintage Gillette razor. Now, I didn't do any kind of pre-shave wash or anything, and sometimes I think I get better lather performance on my second pass because my first one almost behaved like a pre-shave. But it's really kind of acting about the same right now. Did most of the scrubbing on the first pass. I'm not going to do too much on the second. I'm guessing that I didn't quite mix this lather up. Maybe I did add just a little too much water, but hey, you know, I think I was reading the other day how that whole Santa's beard thing where it's just super thick, that's not the standard that wet shavers need to try to achieve. So maybe that's true. I need to kind of find out more about that. I mean, that previous lather that I was just, my first pass, that worked well. So I mean, that's really what matters, right? All right, so Wilkinson sword, cross grain pass here. That blade really feels well in there, you know, very secure, very in control. I don't feel like it's gonna cut me or anything. Yet it doesn't feel super mild, you know. I'm getting some blade feel on my skin, but it's very controlled. It's solid cross grain pass now. My hair pretty much straight down in my cheek area. This left side is pretty straightforward in that it just heads this way. My right side over here is like a big S curve, and it's wacky over here, so you'll see me trying different directions and stuff. Cross grain pattern here. I use the little short strokes like that. It's almost become a habit now to help me with my angle, because after a short stroke, if I feel like I haven't cut anything, If I feel like it's not as good as it could be, then I can quickly adjust. Whereas if I just do one long stroke and I miss it, then, you know, I kind of have to do one long stroke again. I think it's called buffering. Pretty good shave. Not a problem at all in the cheek area. I could probably quit after 2 passes with that. I'm going to pause you for some inspection, more detailed inspection, and a rinse. Okay, I was able to strategize some directions to head to get this trouble spot here. My cheeks feel and look great. My face looks great. There's no irritation. So this razor was able to have good blade feel with no irritation. So that's a very good mixture of two things that can divide. Sometimes you have to pick one or the other. So yeah, the scent is still very much evident in front of you. And if you like citrus with some extra stuff in it, a mossy citrus, who knows, maybe it's like patchouli citrus, a little bit of that. Like I said, I do not actually need to. Okay, now I'm going to examine the center of my brush here. Yeah, see, I can see small bubbles instead of a powder. So I think I got I let it soak for long enough, so that was good. All right. My cheeks, I'll do against the grain, cross grain, but the other direction in general. Okay. Grip is fabulous on this. The weight is really good. The handle length, I have large hands, but it's not bothering me at all. And because the weight is also kind of around right here, the center of gravity here. And it's because a lot of times with the razors, you need to stay close to the head anyway to be more maneuverable, to twist around, and also to have a light touch. It's something it's not natural to me yet. I still feel like pressing some, maybe more than I should, and so I have to just have that in my to-do list consciously until it becomes something that's automatic. This is the cross grain pass. That is in a very sensitive area. some of this, if it's in a sensitive area, I might choose to not do the full opposite cross grain pass and just come at it from a slightly different angle. My skin does not like the against the grain pass. It gets very irritated and it's uncomfortable usually. All right, let us do an inspection here. Your average blade that is sharp will leave, excuse me, this little area incomplete. Everywhere else will be good. But this, I'm not talking about baby smooth, but just a really good shave, you know, very close. But right here will be kind of not as good as it could be. And that's kind of my litmus test for razors that work well for me and ones that don't. Ones like Feather and Persona and Gillette Silver Blue, after 2 passes, this often will be completely cut properly and closely. But most blades, after 3 passes and 1 touch-up, it'll still not quite be cut, but I just have to stop because I don't want to generate more irritation. So we'll see where this shave falls. Sometimes the results are based on what angles I come at it at. So I'll be right back. So it's pretty good right there. It could still use some work. So I'm going to go ahead and do a touch-up pass right there because I've got the lather. Still got plenty of lather. It looks great. It's got a sheen to it, but it is a little bit thin on my face. So I'm guessing I did actually add a little too much water to this. But maybe I didn't, you know. Wow, look at that guy. Maybe I didn't add too much water, and this is how a shaving lather should look. I'll have to do some research. I kind of like them when they're just really thick. But I've also made thick ones like that that were not moist enough. And you do a pass with your razor and there'd just be kind of some dry soap on there. Not really dry, but it just wasn't sticking to the skin. And so I don't think it provided as much protection as it could. So who knows, maybe this is just right. I habitually put a big old wad up here, but I don't really need it. I'll just kind of pull it off. All right, strategy, folks. Now let's see, this area should not be cut right there. Okay, let's come at it from a different angle and try to get some success here. Prior to this pass, no irritation. So this razor and this blade and this soap are doing all of their jobs very well in that sense. No skin irritation at all. It's terrific. Even, you know, sometimes the water, as you kind of rinse off, will tell you where there are some problem spots, but none. If I do this right here, then that's kind of against the grain. Definitely this would be against the grain. That's Little less, that's maybe an 80-degree pass there in that small section, where 0 would be with the grain and 90 would be total perfect cross grain. And I think I may have gotten some of those hairs with that one. Yeah, I can still see some length to them, so I don't think that pass actually did me too much good. Oh well. Alright, but this is kind of what I expect from some of the razors. I mean, it's still a close shave. I don't think anybody, like at the office or whatever would notice that there was anything wrong at all, that you didn't quite get as close as you should. So it's a good shave. Oh, very comfortable, smooth, but also you felt the blade cutting. Didn't pull it all, of course. It's just the first use. I didn't mention that. This is the first use of the Wilkinson sword blade. So I'm happy with that. This is a great little feeling razor. I'm confident if I put a feather in it or a persona, something like that, then it would just take care of all this with no problem at all. So I'm feeling just a little bit of irritation right down there because of that last pass. So let's get rinsed off. I will put some witch hazel on as well and let that soak in. Give that a few minutes before I put my balm on. That last pass did generate some irritation, but I'm confident it's something that will disappear pretty quickly. Now, if you know what kind of, what your last pass is, then you can, there's a name for it, I can't remember what they're calling it, but you can kind of do a push-up process where you squeeze, and this is usually extra dense cream, extra dense lather that is really a pleasure to use. I always forget about it for some reason, and also I usually don't know when my last pass is going to be. So regarding the scent, I wouldn't be unhappy if this was the only soap that I had access to for the rest of my life, It's pleasant, enjoyable, and I'll bet that if I were to use this more than once, I would be smelling some of the different nuances as through the course of learning more about it and stuff, and so that would provide some interest. But it's just a good little fragrance. So, and it's a good base. I think I did probably add just a little too much water. Maybe I should have mixed it a little bit more, but I think I pretty much got that right. But as far as the fragrance goes, nice and pleasant. I still hold by, some kind of citrus, maybe a grassy note in there, maybe some kind of moss, maybe, or peat, one of those types of fragrances. It's not strong enough for me to do a better identification than that. So that's my guess. That's my guess as to the general notes of this scent. I'll have to look online and see how close I was. And I did actually get a little small bleeder right up here. Maybe as I was trying different angles, I didn't have my skin tight enough right there. It's actually very slow. It may have actually stopped, but I just looked down and saw it, wiped it away, and it was gone. So it may be all cleared up by now. So now's the time in Sprockets when we have a razor tour. Here is the Aristocrat, United States model. Gold tone, gold plating on it, some type of gold plating, I don't know what. it was. And there's my Wilkinson sword blade. And then a nice checking on the ridges here. Makes it super easy to hold. And then this is the part that tightens down the doors. And there we go. I don't really like the gold color on things. I much rather prefer the silver, but this was a classy tool a long time ago, and I am enjoying the history of it. I'm enjoying the feel of men before me long ago using this razor. So is this I can compare it to my Fat Boy. I don't know that it's too different than my Fat Boy. And the Fat Boy is adjustable. So who knows, I might find a new home for this one. I might wait a little while because variables change. My technique will change between now and 4 months from now and 8 months from now. And so sometimes it's really good to keep your gear, especially if you're just starting out. Keep your gear for a while, because blades you don't like in the beginning you may love later as your technique improves, as your skin changes, as your ability to make a good lather, a protective lather changes. I mean, just imagine if you've got a razor that is your lather's not very good, not as good as it could be, not as good as it will be, and so then as your blade is coming along your skin's just not as protected as it will be 8 months down the road. And so keep those blades that you're not using for a while. Try them out later when your technique changes and your other variables change. Who knows, they may become your favorites. You never know. Definitely in the beginning, a classic example is the sharp ones like feather, where people just cut their face up in the beginning. And then later on, their technique improves, their razor, maybe they change to a different razor or whatever, and all of a sudden they love the feathers, and that's all they shave with. I mean, that's a typical scenario. So just keep what you got. My recommendation, my opinion is, keep what you have for a while, if you can, because your variables may change and it may become something that you really enjoy. So I got a feeling I'll probably do the same with this razor. Definitely a simpler mechanism since it's not adjustable. And so nice. So the witch hazel has been applied, and let it set in for a few minutes, and then the balm has been applied. I used Nivea aftershave or post-shave balm for sensitive skin. It's inexpensive and it works really well for my skin. So this little razor right here, I think they cost more than the Fat Boys usually. So right now, if I had to pick, I would choose the Fat Boy. But if you were to not really want an adjustable, there's something to be said for simplicity. It's an elegant, pretty piece. Feels great in the hand. I like the weight of it. Because it is not just a mild razor, it's more moderate. I think that its uses are broad. Whether you've got a 2-day growth, or or if you're just you shave every day, then I think this razor is going to take care of you. And so if you wanted to get a vintage razor that had a lot of class, that was worth something, that would kind of cover all your bases, then this might be a good choice for you. So, great little piece of history here that we get to use every day if we want to. How about that? All right, well, that's enough for me. That's a good fragrance, the SoapMakers of Awesometown. If you like the citrus-centric, they muted it a little bit, and so it wasn't a sweet citrus. They muted it with, you heard what I said, maybe the moss or the, something. But it was a nice, pleasant fragrance that I'm sure a lot of people enjoy. And I don't think there's anything else to say. The Wilkinson sword did well. Didn't do great, but it did well. And hey, it's a budget blade. It's very inexpensive. So compared to, I've had higher priced blades that didn't do as well. So it's a great value, and that's why I bought a bunch of them. So that'll be my test. I'll do another Aristocrat tomorrow, and we'll see how it feels. So take care. And it's funny how, little footnote here, it's funny how that citrus-based scent, I mean, it's pleasant and stuff. I enjoyed it okay, but then I just decided to go ahead and throw on a little bit of aftershave, and I immediately was like, oh, that's so much better. So this matches my particular scent profile and preferences better than the SoapMakers of Awesometown does, and that's okay. Everybody's different. But it was funny how I didn't even think about it, but I almost had an involuntary response of, that's much better. So it's funny how we like what we like.